Hello and welcome to Because Things Can Be Different, the podcast that discusses all things business and design. My name is Mike Page.
I'm Cameron Fry.
And in today's episode, we will be discussing why brand and web is more important than ever in the professional service sector. So professional services, it's quite a broad field of industries. So we're including things like law firms, barrister chambers, advertising professionals, architects, accountants. So in short, any business that offers knowledge-based services to their clients. And so what we're going to do is break it down, and we're going to discuss, first of all, why it's so important now.
In the current situation.
In the current situation.
Yeah, for anyone that's watching this in the future, when the world is we hope to.
Do you remember COVID?
Yeah, there you go. So anyone that's listening to in a few years' time, hopefully everything has ended and we're all back to normal. But at this time, as we sit here, COVID is still causing problems. It's still causing shutdowns, lockdowns, etc. So we wanted to explain, in our experience over the last few months, of why brand and web has become incredibly important for us as a business and also our clients.
Yeah.
Existing and new.
Yeah, true. And also then the second point will be what you can do about it, in both areas, how to improve the business. If you're thinking of rebranding, what elements to look at in both, the brand design, the positioning, and the optimization of a website.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, why is it so important now? Well, no one's around. No one's visiting face to face at current time. Again, if you're in the future, hopefully this is no longer the case. But face to face meetings, etc., are very difficult to do. Yeah. Flying in and out of different countries is completely impossible in some cases, and restricted in others, or not advisable in others as well. Like from a personal point of view, some people don't want to travel. So depending on what level of lockdown each country or we as a country have been in, it's affected the way in which you do business.
Yeah.
What hasn't been affected at all is online. No one's turned online off. No one's turned YouTube off.
Internet virus.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, God, don't say that. That'd be awful. But basically, everyone is migrating onto online platforms, and meetings are going online for Zoom and other online meeting platforms are available, Teams, for example. So everything basically has gone onto the computer. Yeah. Now, so why do we feel that brand and web, especially web, obviously, and we'll go into that, but why do we feel brand is so important now?
Awareness, presence, attracting the right sort of clientele.
Telling the story of the company and the people within the company at a glance, which is what we're always aiming to do when we do a branding project. Yeah. So what can you look at from your brand, regardless of hiring a branding agency to do that? What do we see as the key important things within this?
Well, if we take a little step back, concerns are probably the thing to perhaps talk about first, because I think a lot of people, especially in this sector, have a few concerns, especially if they're quite an old firm with historical brand awareness. They may be a little bit scared of a loss of business if anything changes too dramatically. But we would say you have to really get your head around that, because it is more important than ever, really, because of what's happening.
I think you're right. I think there seems to be more fear in prospective and existing clients. It's almost the main part of my job when I'm going to talk to clients or prospective clients about this sector, is that we're not going to all of a sudden destroy what they already have. And the idea is we improve and we move the company forward for, future business, future trends, for example. We don't want them to fall to the wayside because they're out of date. How can we show an example of that? We worked with a 200-year-old barristers chambers. So we were trying to create a concept that could be signed off. I think one of the oldest barristers there was around 85 when we worked on the project. A QC. Yeah. So incredibly well respected in the industry. Great guy as well. Really, really nice and great fun to talk to. But obviously comes from a different era of business where the internet wasn't even invented, when they were kind of cutting their teeth and making getting to the bar. Definitely wasn't around when they get into the bar, but like their business was more about interaction, maybe meeting someone, face to face, a handshake, and then their reputation would precede them. So now they're concerned that this is all new, a new fad. I know it sounds a bit silly, but they still see it as something that can be quite shallow. Yeah. So it's our job to try and explain.
Is the digital handshake as good as
a physical
one?
So what we're trying to do is talk to the 85-year-old, say, about it, and make sure that we're not taking anything away from what's been built over 200 years, for example, for barrister chambers. But also the issue that a lot of these companies that have been around for a while, it doesn't have to be that long, it can be around 40, 50 years, is getting young talent involved. So young talent doesn't necessarily want to work for a company that feels old, stuffy, maybe being left behind by new companies that are a little bit more tech savvy, a little bit more cooler, nicer, easier to use website. That's an issue we've dealt with quite a lot for the clients we've worked in within these sectors. Is service sector businesses rely heavily on excellent new talent. That's the key. So the people that they're going after normally can choose exactly where they want to go. Not just which company, but even where in the world. They will travel from the other side of the world to come and work for a firm that they have respect for, because that's how they want to build their career, and they want their name attached to that brand. So it's very important.
I find, you might agree, that a lot of the time, if we're going through this process, maintaining trust is top of the list, but improving that existing business and also attracting new.
You're maintaining trust within existing business, rather than looking like it's being sold to someone or something.
Still maintaining the approachability, or introducing more approachability because of COVID, making it operational. So
let's cut it down to our key points that we always go into the room and say the same things, because this is what we believe. We take a very holistic approach to branding, especially within these sectors. So what we always say is that the 80s shell, I call it the 80s shell, because I think that's when that glossy kind of shiny suit kind of side shoulder of corporate side, where everything was like the facade. Well, I personally relate it to the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, where that trust for that type of thing got really corroded and destroyed, where people, as soon as it was a little bit too corporate, people didn't trust it. It didn't matter whether you're in finance or banking or whatever the sector that caused it. So what
it was murky, wasn't it? It was just,
and people just don't seem to, and still to this day, don't trust that feel. So what we try and do, and what we recommend you guys do if you're in these sectors, is to try and break down those barriers and become a lot more human centric. And it's not seen as unprofessional now to be a lot more human centric, like us talking to you now on a video. And it's more about engaging with your clients on a personal level, rather than just, here's a glossy logo, here's our name that means nothing, and here's our website that says very little. It's a lot more about getting your company's collective personality across, the tone of voice in which you want to put forward. That doesn't mean it all has to be friendly. I think that's something that I get quite a lot when I'm in meetings. So
it doesn't mean the brand has to change too much. If we are starting with that and rebranding, historical elements can be retained, but it's about modernising, doing careful changes to things like the sub-branding, the pattern, and the colours that you use.
If you've got a fantastic history that's been around for 40, 50, 200 years, why in God's name would you want to remove that weight and that history and that reputation? You wouldn't. And any good branding agency wouldn't want that either. No. It's about bringing it to the fore, but not making... You don't want to be living in the past. You don't want to talk about how great you were. You want to be talking about how great you are and how forward thinking you are. So some of our clients might be that old, for example, but they're actually at the forefront of dealing with intellectual property within tech. Which is, they're dealing with cases that no one even knows about the technology at the moment. It's not even being released to the public, and they're dealing with disputes and stuff. It's that forward thinking and technologically led that the company needs to be balanced across those two. So we've dealt with a couple of companies like that, and then we're obviously talking that's law, but it's the same with we've got a a building control company on our books at the moment, where we're branding or rebranding them, helping create a new entity for them. And that's important because that's a very serious job. And for our international clients, hopefully building control as a title is quite explanatory. But yeah, it's about making sure that you're meeting regulations. In the UK, we have that. I know in America, it's like local authorities and government backed. So it's very serious. Yeah. But it doesn't mean personality can't come across and sell the reason you would use them over someone else.
Yeah, I mean, personality, what better way to get that across than content? Both in the written content, in the photographic and video content. And video is really high on the list. And that can be in the form of portraiture, I suppose, if you want to get the personality across in terms of the team that work with you. But also the essence of the business, that character behind the business.
So to just make it clear, I think what's important to point out is that when we say we take a holistic approach, we always say to people, we don't design logos. What we mean is we don't design just a logo. That is not branding. That is graphic design, if you like, but it's not branding. So the logo is only one part of the brand. The content, so photography, even videography, colorways, patterns, tone of voice in the copy, that's branding.
Even down to how you answer the phone. It's
exactly. So if anyone's thinking, we're just going to then talk to you about what logo you should create, we can do that, but that is normally the bit that is mistaken. It's one part of it, and it's important. If you have a serif or sans serif font, for example, can say two different things. You can mix those two together, so you can have more traditional and more modern feel. Same with marks. You can have quite a traditional looking mark that then brings quite a modern, say, written logo up to speed. It's hard for anyone that's just listening to this for us to go into those type of details, but I would like to point out how unimportant that can become if you get everything else wrong, which is more common in this sector than any other.
That's true.
The logo can be great, and then everything else around it has been missed.
Yeah, surfacing the logo on a really poorly thought out website is
business cards printed on terribly cheap, horrible stock. What was the point in getting a nice logo done when you pass a card over and it's hideous? In times like this, we're not allowed to pass cards over. So like Mike's pointing out this, or if you go on to your logo comes up as part of a video conferencing thing, and your logo is just horrible or says completely the wrong thing, and that's you're inviting people to go to that meeting, and as they hit the home screen,
or the assets not being managed correctly and it's all pixelated. I mean, that's the worst thing you want to see. How does your brand come across when you see things like that? That's something you've definitely got to get right.
That's the bit that's now so important that got missed and has been missed, and that's why we're doing this podcast, is because you really need to drill these things down. It's key to point out this. The thing that's highlighted it to us is some of our customers have had quite a large, we're talking hundreds of % increase in business because of COVID, causing people to sit down and use their computer. And where they've been forward thinking in their marketing, digital assets, their brand being updated to the now and to attract the customers that have the money to be spent in these sectors, they are getting an increase in business, where we're getting phone calls from people that have realized how they should have done it in the last 10 years, say, haven't, and their business is now being crippled by this because no one's come into your flash office in London or LA or New York, because they can't, at least at the time of this recording they couldn't. Now they need to be able to understand your company, get a feel for the tone of voice, the vibe of the company through the internet, and it gets missed so regularly by this type of company.
I mean, with the internet, we're talking not just your website, but I mean, Google, in a sense, if the business has to surface on Google, it has to surface as a website, but also as a profile or through any other channel for like social media. So all of that has to be in sync with any sort of brand changes that you make.
Yeah, so like professional profile websites that you may pay, directories that you pay for. That can be missed, where the tone of voice on that doesn't tie in with the website, for example, or the tone of voice on that is completely different to the website. Therefore, you're paying for people to be ferried to your website to instruct you, and actually the tone of voice is ferrying the wrong type of people. They get to their website, the tone of voice is completely different. You're causing a blockage in your sales funnel.
And that's where a set of brand guidelines would be useful.
Yeah.
Obviously that's quite a big subject. Perhaps we can come back to that in a later.
Yeah. So let's drill it down to like key points, because obviously we try and keep these podcasts quite short. So key points you want to look at is website. Now is the time to redo it if you haven't done it. That's 100% our opinion, and it's 100% the thing that's given our clients that have received these huge boosts. It's because their website's very usable. It's very good for Google searches, SEO base. It's been thought about already.
Mobile optimization is the top.
Mobile first. The algorithm was released. You have to do it, even if all your clients don't really use mobile. Say for a law firm, our research and analytics from our customers show that mobile is not the most important thing, but Google has decided that it is. Therefore, your website needs to work that way, so Google doesn't punish you and put you down in rankings. Then also, if it's applicable to you, social media, because yes, we do understand there's some sectors that really Instagram is not going to cut it, but there are professional services that Instagram and Facebook does work very well for them, and it gives them a personal interaction with clients or prospective clients. You need to get that on point. So for example, photography. Should you be taking photos on a terrible iPhone's not fair, but an old iPhone where the camera's not very good, you have no photographic skills whatsoever. If you're not going to hire a professional photographer like Mr. Michael here, then get online. There's lots of very cheap and free courses, free videos on YouTube, for example. It is important because you can destroy the look of your brand by just having really bad quality photography, etc. Same with if you're not a copywriter, then pay for a copywriter to change your copy to meet the tone of voice that you've decided is needed. If you want a slightly more friendly approach to break down that 80 shell, have a copywriter look at it and try and get that tone of voice through. Any good copywriter will be able to do that. Preferably you want to use one that has experience within your sector. So, you don't want someone that normally writes for Nike adverts to be trying to write copy for a law firm or an accountancy firm.
We're talking about the voice of the business. So, and that's written as well as visual. You could even say it could be part of the brand guidelines. So it's your visual language,
photographic language.
If you can get that down as a non-professional photographer, and make sure it resonates with your target market, that's really quite important. And that's both across photography and video as well.
And if you are a bigger company who's turning over a lot more than like a small one-man band, say solicitor on their own, then please invest, not in us if you don't like us, but anyone that's got some experience. It is important because the return on investment in our experience is absolutely huge. It pays you back in dividends. So it's the safest bet a lot of the time, is just to get it done professionally and get it done well. And the return on investment is the new clients and the better, more solidified relationships with existing ones. So what else? We've gone through basics of brand within the web, and then how about the website itself?
I was going to say, so that if you're talking about the content being used on the web, it's the UX. A lot of people will say, well, how does content affect the way we use a website? It really does. It's really important because that will lead you. It leads you into looking at other areas. Say, for example, the sectors or the services that firm, for example, will offer. And the photography and the video is key with that. It's got to put the right message across.
Websites are visual.
Exactly.
You don't sit there and listen to a website.
You don't.
No. So it's a visual thing. And this again, it's the tough side of these type of industries, because sometimes the photography is very hard to get. We've got experience where the client's like, what we do is quite boring visually. It's just very pragmatic and practical. So we work with companies that do amazing stuff like Littlehampton Welding with huge sculptures that are 5 stories high. Well, that's quite easy to make a website look interesting having that on there. But you've got a company that deals with high net worth divorce, for example. You can't have a photo of someone getting divorced. I mean, it would be in bad taste if you did. And to be honest, it's not going to be particularly interesting even if you could get one. So how do you get that across, and how do you get the feel of the company across? Through
stylized imagery.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The website, you can't just have a bunch of writing. Also, all the research, please correct me if I'm wrong on this because it's probably out of date, but I think it's around 80% of copy on most websites doesn't get read in the first visit.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one that you want to work. You want someone to land on your site because of all the fantastic SEO that's being created and online content, articles, for example, off-site portfolio pieces, portfolio for us and professional articles listings, sorry. I'm thinking like Legal 500 and stuff like that. So they come to your website, then you want to be guiding them. Key part of what we do is we treat every one of our websites almost like an e-commerce site. So it's a sales funnel. It's not just there for someone to look at and then maybe come back to it. It's always guiding someone to an email or a phone. We always recommend phone call because you want that connection with the customer as soon as possible. And who can explain it better than someone within the business over a phone? So we're guiding someone to that from start to finish. So that gets missed a lot within websites within these sectors. It's just a site. There's no call to action. There's nothing. That's number one thing. If you add that to your existing website, you will start getting more business through that.
Easy to navigate, but surfacing the right information. And we're not talking about all the information because leave something back for yourselves to be able to communicate with the client, potential client, or even have the information broken down. So you have an intro. So like the homepage could be almost like a snapshot of the entire website.
Yeah, so I think we've used this before when we're trying to explain it to clients is think magazine, not, £500, £500, it's an expensive book, 500 page book. Think magazine. Now, it doesn't matter what industry you're in because I've said this and people are like, oh, it's a very important one. There's a lot of information to get across. It doesn't matter. The way people read websites is different to the way they read a book or, a blog with lots of information. It's not that we're saying don't have it, but you want to think headlines, then like sub headlines / descriptions that you're going from level 1, level 2, then you're going in depth. And that information can be then populated in different places on different pages. So the website looks clean and easy to use rather than just pages and pages and pages and pages of writing.
You get bogged down. I'd just like to add to that as well. That's also really, the way you describe the structure, that's also part of SEO. So that's really important to have that.
Yes. Yeah. Google likes that. I mean, Google knows how people have been using websites for all of these years, and that's why these things are listed out. So it's because it's easier, it's humanized. It doesn't hit you in the face with a bunch of stuff straight away because you can't focus on it like a broadsheet newspaper. So what else is there? We've got the copy. We've got photographic language being important because websites are visual. So even if you're doing something that's not visual, like accountancy, for example, you need to get some photos. We don't believe in stock imagery, is worth pointing out as well. Return on investment from that, we don't believe is worth it. You just look like another company. This again comes from research. It's just a bunch of people sitting around a table, but none of those people exist in that business.
And so if you find that image you think is good, guarantee it, someone, probably a close competitor to you, will have it as well.
And people notice because we've done our research and we've had some customers even point this out on existing websites they've had done, that people have pointed out that it's stock imagery. It can look a bit fake. This is the bit that gets forgotten, is that if you're wanting someone to entrust you for accountancy, for example, where the person, you can end up in prison if you do your accounts wrong. And that's worldwide pretty much. So think about how much trust that person has to put in. If you can't even see a photo of a real person in that business on the site, you're not installing trust within that visit and within that user experience.
Keep it tailored, keep it dynamic.
Yes. That sounds super designy there.
It does.
Nice, well done.
Yeah. I didn't want to use too much technical jargon, but that's the level I'm going to go to. I suppose as well, upscaling forward-facing information. So profiles, news items, things like that. That's got to really surface more now than ever, really, because of what's happening. So
so we've moved news articles and stuff to our front pages and made them. But that's us realizing that we need to be able to talk and get the information out to people immediately because we can't go and see people as easily. So we want people to, when they come and land on certain pages, we want the reference article or the news that we put up about that to be populated immediately as they hit the page. So we've actually changed our own UX and our own websites across our group to allow us to do that.
And through that humanizing, like you said earlier, it's breaking down that barrier, crumbling that corporate shell that is
Yeah,
Literally.
you need to build a relationship now through digital means. So it can't just be a Zoom call. I'm sure everyone has had Zoom meetings and realised what a difference it is when you're having Zoom or Google Hangouts or something to get your point across when there might be a bad connection or something. So you really want your website to do a great job of that before someone picks up the phone and arranges one of these meetings that you have to do. You need to get your personality of your business across and the people within your business. It's key to point out, we've been preaching this for years. It's just now COVID has made it so much more important for clients. We don't want people that do great work to go out of business because of something so simple.
There's no reason to.
I don't want to do us a disservice saying that our job is simple, but it is. It's not as complicated as everyone thinks. It's more obvious. You know, what do you want to see as a customer when you go to another business that you're not part of? Take that, put yourself in the third person, and think, how do people see my business? That's what we do. Our job is easier for our clients than it is for us in our own business. We've talked about that repeatedly.
We have,
because we're in it so much. So you need to take yourself out, and that is why the investment into professional services in branding and web and stuff is so important. Even if you do it your own within your own business, is because that third person, we still pay for subcontractors and stuff to look at our stuff because we're so aware we're within the business and can be blinded by that. So in a nutshell, if you're redoing a brand or you think you should, you need to be looking at why you're doing it and what your customers should be understanding when they look at your brand in a glance. So that's colorways, the type of logo, etc. And then it goes into more depth when you go down to next level photographic language, then tone of voice when it comes to copy. That's that part. Look and feel, nutshell. Always the look and feel is aiming for a demographic, a type of client, or a reason in which they get in contact with you. It's all business related. Don't forget that. That's something. It's not just. And it's not just design.
And we have strategies that we use to help develop that side of things.
So you look at all of that, and then what's really important at the moment is the fact that people can't come and interact with you personally. So then your website, so not just your website, but online profiles, business listing pages, you want to make sure all of those are wrapped up into a neat package so they all sing from the same hymn sheet. You can't have this, disjointed different tone of voice. Hopefully, if you go away and work on all those, you will see results quite quickly. Google moves much quicker than it used to. So when you make improvements, they reward you much quicker. Before you'd have a population issue and it'd take forever. Everything moves quicker now. So go away and try it out.
You can generate new content. And the podcast that we're doing now is a great example because we've already had, even in the space of a few months, even through Christmas, we've had people talk about the fact that they've seen the podcast and that has...
we don't get huge amounts. What we're talking about is very, centric to the sector. The last podcast were all aimed at the Global Coffee Festival, so we were just a coffee industry, but we've already had people, it's not how many people, it's whether it's the right people. And we always say that about websites. You don't need 2,000 people hitting your page every second if you only need 1, 2, 3 of the right client. So concentrate on that. So I think that's the end of episode 5. We fitted it in a nutshell, I think.
We have. So thank you very much for listening and watching. This has been Because Things Can Be Different. Please like, comment, send us emails full of suggestions that you'd like to hear from us. And we'd see you on the next one.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.